A story of faith in adversity. I never thought I would share this story with anyone. Not because it's so special or strange, but because it's so true. So true, sometimes I don't know how to fully express it. But if you're in a dark place, where the light seems to have left, then maybe this story is for you. My son, his name is Jacob, was in an accident on his way home from work one rainy afternoon. The other driver said he was going too fast, but I knew my son. He was always careful, but it didn't matter anymore. When I got to the hospital, all the doctor said was, "We're trying, but he's severely brain damaged." I sat there on the cold plastic chair in the emergency room, still holding his jacket, soaked with rain. I didn't cry. I couldn't. The pain didn't turn into tears. It was just a silent void choking in my chest. I stayed in the hospital for the next few days. There were times when I prayed all night, reading the Bible as if clinging to each word. There were times when I stared silently through the ICU window, my son's hand lying still, as if he had left this world. I began to doubt. Not doubt God, but doubt whether I still had enough faith. I kept asking, "God, are you there? Do you hear me?" But there was no answer, just silence. On the 7th day, when it started to rain again, I was sitting huddled on a wooden chair in the hallway when a man appeared. He was wearing a brown coat and an old wool hat. His face was wrinkled, but his eyes were strangely gentle. He sat next to me, not asking questions, not being curious. He just gently placed a Bible in my hand. I looked at him hesitantly. He said only one sentence, his voice low and firm. "I believe God is listening, even though we can't hear him." Then he stood up and walked briskly down the dim hallway. I tried to call out to him to ask his name, but he had disappeared as if he had never been there. I opened the Bible. It was old. The spine was frayed. The pages were yellowed. A small piece of paper fell out. On it was written in blue ink, "Faith does not make things easy. It makes them possible." Luke 1:3-7. I don't know why that sentence touched me so much, but that night, for the first time in a week, I slept for a few hours. The next morning, the doctor said my son had a slight reaction when his name was called. They said, "This is good progress." In the following days, little by little, my son gradually recovered. Sometimes he opened his eyes. Sometimes he moved his fingers. A young nurse sat reading the Bible to me when I was tired. A doctor told me that his faith had helped him through the loss of his wife. Everyone began to share their own stories, as if a quiet light was spreading through that cold floor. 2 weeks later, my son woke up. He had no memory of the accident, but he held my hand and said, "I had a dream that you were sitting next to me, reading something in a very worn voice." I just smiled, because I knew it wasn't a dream. It was a whisper from somewhere deeper. I went back to the old man who had given me the book. I asked around. No one knew him. The nurse on duty that day said there was no one like him on the hospital's visitor list. I showed them the Bible. They said they had never seen anyone bring such an old one into the waiting room. I sat back in the wooden chair. I held the book in my hand, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. I can't say it's a miracle, but I know one thing for sure. God doesn't leave us, even when we can't see him. Sometimes he comes, just as a stranger with an old Bible in his hand. And sometimes he sends us a Bible verse, just when we're about to give up. If you're in a dark place, remember, faith is not a feeling. It's a decision to keep believing, even when you can't see anything. I chose to believe, and because of that, I have my son. And more than that, I have myself back.